Welcome back for a new movie review. This film review is on my main channel because this is a live action adaptation of video games. This is going to be a double feature review. Looking back, nostalgia factor included at the original Mortal Kombat film released in 1994. I believe it was 94 or 95. And the also looking released in 1997. Its sequel, Mortal Kombat Annihilation. So it's a double pack review. So with that said, the first film was released, like I said. It wasn't super close to the video game, but keep in mind, these movies came out back when I wasn't the hugest fan of Mortal Kombat games. I wouldn't really become a big Mortal Kombat game fan or really start until more towards Mortal Kombat 4 / Mortal Kombat Gold. Around 1998, 1999, before I'd really start playing the Mortal Kombat games and genuinely enjoying them. Though it wouldn't be until like Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance and Deception now I would become a big Mortal Kombat fan. So with that said, with the original Mortal Kombat movie, I liked the casting all around. I thought was very well executed. And now, looking back, obviously with MK11 DLC, Shang Tsung, the actor, of course, who portrays Shang Tsung has become quite iconic with some very iconic lines and one-liners throughout the years, like, for instance, flawless victory, him saying, or your soul is mine, or like saying, you'll be next, or it has begun, and many other iconic lines. As well as, I will say, the casting of Liu Kang is also just as spot on as the casting for Shang Tsung. Great job all around. Now, I knew the actor who played Liu Kang prior from the Disney early 90s live action adaptation of The Jungle Book. Not great, definitely anything but close to the original, but still, at least I knew him prior. So that also gave me a little more enjoyment also of the actor who played Liu Kang, since at least I knew him prior. But love the film as a whole, nostalgia and all. Great one-liners, great everything, and the set designs are superb. Yeah, the CGI hasn't aged the best, but to be fair, we're talking pretty relatively early on in CGI lifespan for movies in general. And so it can be allowed to pass the bad CGI because given I know the time frame when it came out and what films, only a small handful, but what really helped this film, I feel, age better is because of using more practical effects over CGI, and the fact with Goro that they decided to go with more of an animatronic. That was the smart part. That was a normal person with like a prosthetic animatronic part on top for the forearms and everything. And because of using animatronics may not look the greatest, but I think it helped it age better than what it will look like had they have just used early CGI for Goro. They went the smarter choice. And that's the thing, I think animatronic stuff ages better. Like, look at the original Jurassic Park as an instance. The animatronic T-Rex part versus the CGI looks and helped it age a lot better. So they went with smart. Also, the part when Goro crushes like Johnny Cage's sunglasses, and Johnny Cage was like, those were $500 sunglasses. Perfect. And also having a part scene where this is where you fall down and then Goro drops to his death Also, other casting in the film that was great was the actor who, of course, played Raiden, which, in my opinion, is still the best Raiden. And I've seen the 2021 newest Mortal Kombat movie yesterday, and I will say I'll give a review in the future once I see that movie a second time so I can give a more thorough evaluation of the movie. But with this film, great, still stands in my opinion as the best MK movie hands down. The nostalgia factor and everything else combined. But the film age and had great soundtrack. I loved also the casting of characters like Kano. I thought was really solid, and this was the actually the first Australian version of Kano. Funny enough, games would end up adopting and making him Australian. So the movie is actually what did it first, strangely enough, which I find fascinating in itself. But we got some great fights overall. A lot of head nods to the fans as well with things. Yeah, it was PG-13, but they were smart how they did things around the blood. Instead, focusing a little more on characters and interactions, the story, and everything. Like I said, I think the sets and everything are great in the film, and I all around I love it. Like I like the casting. I think in general, like 90+% of the entire cast was great done. The character interactions were great between Sonya as well as Johnny Cage and of course Liu Kang, as well as Raiden. Of course, I've always known the actor who played Raiden best as, of course, the immortal Connor MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod from Highlander. So, he is one of my personal favorite actors of that time period, arguably. He killed it as Raiden. Iconic, and that's obvious that a lot of these characters are iconic given they did special DLC skins or character and stuff, as a lot of head nods to the original Mortal Kombat movie, which shows in the fact what really also helped the Mortal Kombat movie was the fact it had a director who cared more about it, though this would be the director's, in my opinion, pretty much about his only good live action adaptation off of video game property, unfortunately. But all around, the original Mortal Kombat movie is great, and the final fight scene at the end is great. Also, I loved the, of course, the casting and everything of as well Katana. I thought was great, and all around, it's solid in every domain, in my opinion. All around, I have to give the original Mortal Kombat movie an A plus. Great film, highly recommend it. It's pretty much still one of the top two best video game adaptations of all time, in my opinion, along with the original Silent Hill film. Now we look at part two, released a few years later. We would see technically taking place right where we left off. Of course, there'd be a brief recap of the first film, though we would see many changes, like casting wise. We would see a different actor play the role of Johnny Cage, though that wouldn't matter, spoiler alert, because Johnny Cage dies in the beginning of Annihilation. We would see a recasting of Sonya Blade. We would see a recasting of Jax, though Jax only had brief cameo in the first film. Also, we would see a complete, unfortunately, change on actors playing the role of Raiden. Now, to be fair, in the beginning, I actually don't think the casting was bad. Raiden, of the recasting actors and actresses, I think Rand was probably one of the better ones, though I will say still, the original Highlander Raiden, I still feel by far is the best Raiden, but that's just me. But still, I don't think he was as bad as some people treat him out to be. Now, there's definitely a lot of questionable stuff casting wise, I will say. Some of the costumes and stuff look good. Now, unfortunately, this film relied too heavily on, unfortunately, CGI versus the first film, which is why Annihilation has aged a lot worse than the first film. Because the first film did a lot more practical effects, plus used animatronics. In this film, however, we wouldn't get animatronics like with Motaro, it would be CGI. Surprisingly, design wise, I'll be honest, I don't think the Motaro design is actually that bad. Yes, some stuff doesn't look that great with the CGI and stuff, but I think Motaro is one of the better design characters in the film. But the CGI creatures and stuff in the film, they sucked, let's be honest. They also felt like they came straight out of Spawn, though that's no surprise given Spawn and Mortal Kombat were both done by New Line Cinema Pictures, so that's no surprise there either. But with that said, Annihilation, though, is one of the cases where I think the video game sound, or rather the movie soundtrack, ended up better than the movie. Though I don't hate Annihilation as much as other people, like I said, it's one of my biggest guilty pleasure movies of all time. But with the actors they chose, I don't think overall necessarily the actor they chose as Shao Kahn was the worst casting. They could have chosen definitely a lot better, but I actually feel at least the guy they chose was okay in size, not as big as Shao Kahn in game, but still, I mean, the dude is like 6'4" or so he's still a pretty good sized guy. Plus, he's definitely no stranger to me because I've seen him in many things throughout the years. He was appeared in Buffy. He appeared in Charmed and many other shows and movies throughout the years. Um, Also, I want to say, I actually think he wasn't overall that bad. They could have done a better job with his costume, but I think I'd had less issue had he had kept the Shao Kahn helmet on more than he actually did. He literally only had the Shao Kahn helmet on maybe 10% of his screen time, which sucks. And there's a lot of questionable things they did in Annihilation. The fight scenes, I think quite a few of the fight scenes actually ended up really solid and well executed. Like, I love the fight scene between Sub-Zero and Scorpion. I thought was great. A lot of the music went, I think, perfectly for it, in my personal opinion, as well as I liked at least the original casting, the original actor and actress that played Katana and Liu Kang. Luckily, at least returned, so that helped having the original Liu Kang back. I will say, if recasting, I think the recasting of Jax was actually a good choice because I actually liked the guy they chose to play Jax in Annihilation. Plus, I actually think the metal arms look pretty good. Personally, I think they look better than the metal arms in the new film. Just saying. Um, but the fight scenes are pretty good overall, and I appreciate at least they didn't do too many jump cuts in the fight scenes. Like, it's something I'm going to be mentioning in the new film I had an issue with. But all around, I enjoyed it. I thought they. Now, the CGI, sadly, animality scene is definitely not great at all. I also liked, though, actually, the casting of Nightwolf, I thought was actually not bad. The casting of Jade was not necessarily that bad either. Sindel, oh boy. The bad acting from the actress who played Sindel. That was anything but good. Like, that line when she said to Katana says, "Mother, you're alive." And then Cinderella points like, "You will die." That was a really bad acted line. There was a lot of bad melded performances in Annihilation. But for me, that is kind of one of the appeals I liked about Annihilation. The guilty pleasure, bad acting, the cheesiness. The cheese is up to 11 in this film. But that's why I kind of like Annihilation, in all honesty. I got a kick out of everything. I will say one of the weirdest parts was the swerve they decided to do in the film, making Shao Kahn and Raiden brothers. Interesting choice. Even more interesting and weird is the fact they end up having a dad, which is an elder god, and strangely enough, the father of Raiden and Shao Kahn in Annihilation is Shinnok for some reason. Alrighty then. That's weird to say the least. There was definitely some very questionable things they did, like Shao Kahn and Raiden being brothers and Shinnok being their dad, and of course Shinnok was an elder god, but that's some of the weirdest stuff I will say I feel in the film. Though the music, once again, and I love the remix of the original Mortal Kombat thing, was awesome. And I liked, for the most part, still the film for what was a cheesy, over the top, ridiculous mess of a movie. But I love it for it. I love it for the bad one liners, the total cheese in the comments and everything in the movie. I like it more than many people. All around, even though I still feel there's definitely a lot of issues with Annihilation, I'm going to give Annihilation the rating of a B minus. So yeah, like I said, that's it. Like I said, the first Mortal Kombat gets an A plus, and I give Annihilation a B minus just because it's one of my ultimate guilty pleasure movies of all time. So with that said, leave a comment. What is your opinion on the first Mortal Kombat movie as was Mortal Kombat Annihilation? I'm curious what people's opinions are. I know that I'm one of the minority when it comes to enjoying Annihilation, and I'm fine with that. I have no problem admitting it's one of my biggest guilty pleasures, along with Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. But with that said, I'll see y'all next time. Hopefully enjoy the retro wave in the background. And I'm working on a new best to worst list, which I will be ranking from best to worst the Super Smash games. So stay tuned for that. See you next time. And stay tuned in the future for my review of Mortal Kombat 2021. See you then.